Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is another special Cloak and Dagger Christmas video. I thought it would be fun to see if I could find 20 mysteries that I have read from 20 countries for 2020. Cloak and Dagger Christmas is all about mysteries. And in one of the prompts, one of the options was to read a book about travel or set in a warm climate, and that just got me thinking about other countries around the world. So here are my 20 mysteries from 20 countries for 2020. The first country is Germany, and the book is The Ice Queen by Nele Neuhaus, translated by Stephen T. Murray. The body of 92-year-old Yossi Goldberg, Holocaust survivor and American citizen, is found shot to death execution style in his house near Frankfurt. A 5-digit number is scrawled in blood at the murder scene. The autopsy reveals an old and unsuccessfully covered tattoo on the corpse's arm, a blood type marker used once by Hitler's SS. Pia Kirchhoff and Oliver Bodenstein are faced with a riddle. Was the old man not Jewish after all? Who was he, really? 2 more similar murders happen, one of a wheelchair-bound old lady in a nursing home and one of a man with a cellar filled with Nazi paraphernalia. And slowly the connections between the victims become evident. All of them were lifelong friends of Vera von Kaltensee, Baroness, well-respected philanthropist, and head of an old rich family that she rules with an iron fist. Pia and Oliver follow the trail which leads them all the way back to the end of World War II and the area of Poland that then belonged to East Prussia. The Ice Queen is a character and plot-driven mystery about revenge, power, and long-forgotten covered-up secrets from a time in German history that still affects the present. I really like that book and I really like that series. Next, let's move to Japan. The Tokyo Zodiac Murders by Soji Shimada, translated by Shika and Ross MacKenzie. Japan, 1936. An old eccentric artist living with 7 women has been found dead in a room locked from the inside. His diaries reveal alchemy, astrology, and a complicated plan to kill all 7 women. Shortly afterwards, the plan is carried out. The women are found dismembered and buried across rural Japan. By 1979, these Tokyo Zodiac murders have been obsessing a nation for decades, but not one of them has been solved. The mystery-obsessed illustrator and the talented astrologer set off around the country, and you follow, carrying the enigma of the Zodiac murderer through madness, misleads, and magic tricks. That one was really fun. I quite enjoyed that one. Russia. Madness Treads Lightly by Polina Dashkova, translated by Marian Schwartz. Only 3 people can connect a present-day murderer to a serial killer who 14 years ago terrorized a small Siberian town, and one of them is already dead. As a working mother, Lena Polyanska has her hands full. She's busy caring for her 2-year-old daughter, editing a successful magazine, and supporting her husband, a high-ranking colonel in counterintelligence. She doesn't have time to play amateur detective. But when a close friend's suspicious death is labeled a suicide, she's determined to prove he wouldn't have taken his own life. As Lena digs into her investigation, all clues point to murder and its connection to a string of grisly cold case homicides that stretches back to the Soviet era. When another person in her circle falls victim, Lena fears she and her family may be next, and she's determined to do whatever it takes to protect them. France. Bruno, Chief of Police by Martin Walker. Captain Bruno is in charge of a modest force in the town of Saint-Denis in the Périgord region of France. And Bruno is not your typical hard-hitting copper. He never carries the gun he owns and barely needs to arrest people. But suddenly all is turmoil in the town as inspectors from Brussels swoop on the rural market, making many enemies. Bruno is worried by the fact that this phenomenon is evoking memories of the town's ignoble Vichy France past. Then, an old man from a North African immigrant family is murdered. Greece. Murder in Mykonos by Jeffrey Siger. When politically incorrect hotshot detective Andreas Kaldis is promoted out of Athens to serve as police chief for Mykonos, he is certain his homicide days are over. Murders shouldn't happen in tourist heaven. But soon he is staring at the remains of a young woman found ritually bound and buried on a pile of human bones inside a remote mountain church. Teamed with the canny, nearly retired local homicide chief, Andreas tries to find the killer before the media destroys the island's fabled reputation with a barrage of worldwide attention. Just when it seems things can't get any worse, another young woman disappears. With the investigation now a rescue operation, Andreas plunges into ancient myths and forgotten places, racing against a killer intent on claiming a new victim who is herself determined to outstep him. Scotland. The Blackhouse by Peter May. This is the first in a trilogy which was really good. A brutal killing has taken place on Scotland's most remote island. Detective Finn MacLeod is sent from Edinburgh to investigate. For Lewis-born MacLeod, the case represents a journey both home and into his past. Something lurks beneath the close-knit, God-fearing facade of the Lewis community. Something primal. As Finn investigates, old secrets are unearthed, and soon he, the hunter, becomes the hunted. A mystery that explores just how difficult it is to escape your past. Austria. A Death in Vienna, or Mortal Mischief, by Frank Tallis. It is Vienna at the beginning of the last century, and Dr. Max Lieberman is a young psychoanalyst and disciple of Freud. Psychoanalysis is only just developing and viewed with a mixture of excitement and suspicion. The world of 1900s Vienna is one where philosophy, science, and art are at their most exciting and flourishing, with the coffee shops full of men and women debating the latest cultural and political theories. Lieberman's good friend Oscar Reinhardt is a detective inspector, hard-working but lacking Lieberman's insights and forensic eye, and so it is through Reinhardt that Lieberman is called upon to help with police investigations surrounding the death of a beautiful young medium who, in what seems at first to be circumstantial, supernatural circumstances. India. Murder in Old Bombay by Nev March. In 1892, Bombay is the center of British India. Nearby, Captain Jim Agnihotri lies in Pune Military Hospital, recovering from a skirmish on the wild northern frontier, with little to do but reread the tales of his idol, Sherlock Holmes, and browse the daily papers. The case that catches Captain Jim's attention is being called the crime of the century. 2 women fell from the busy university's clock tower in broad daylight. Moved by Addy, the widower of one of the victims, his certainty that his wife and sister did not commit suicide, Captain Jim approaches the Parsi family and is hired to investigate what happened that terrible afternoon. But in a land of divided loyalties, asking questions is dangerous. Captain Jim's investigation disturbs the shadows that seem to follow the Framji family and triggers an ominous chain of events. This is based on a true story. This is just recently out. I loved it. And it is definitely a historical mystery, but it is also epic. It is an epic story, and I really enjoyed it. Singapore. Singapore Sapphire by A.M. Stuart. Singapore, 1910. Desperate for a fresh start, Harriet finds herself living with her brother, a reverend and headmaster of a school for boys. in Singapore at the height of colonial rule. Hoping to gain some financial independence, she advertises her services as a personal secretary. It is unfortunate that she should discover her first client, Sir Oswald Newbold, explorer, mine magnate, and president of the exclusive Explorers and Geographers Club, dead with a knife in his throat. When Inspector Robert Curran is put on the case, he realizes that he has an unusual witness in Harriet. Harriet's keen eye for detail and strong sense of duty interests him, as does her distrust of the police and her traumatic past, which she is at pains to keep secret from the gossips of Singapore society. When another body is dragged from the canal, Harriet feels compelled to help with the case. She and Curran are drawn into a murderous web of treachery and deceit, and find themselves face to face with a ruthless cabal that has no qualms about killing again to protect its secrets. Malaysia, a most peculiar Malaysian murder by Shamini Flint. Inspector Singh is in a bad mood. He's been sent from his home in Singapore to Kuala Lumpur to solve a murder that has him stumped. Chelsea Liu, the famous Singaporean model, is on death row for the murder of her ex-husband. She swears she didn't do it. He thinks she didn't do it. But no matter how hard he tries to get to the bottom of things, he still arrives back at the same place. That Chelsea's husband was shot at point-blank range, and that Chelsea has the best motivation to pull the trigger. He was taking her kids away from her. Now, Inspector Singh must pull out all the stops to crack a crime that could potentially free a beautiful and innocent woman and reunite a mother with her children. There's just one problem. The Malaysian police refuse to play ball. I really enjoyed this series. I believe that one is the first in the series. Inspector Singh is a great character, and I like that Shamini Flint sets her books in different countries, because in that part of the world, these countries are really close together, and he moves about between the countries, and I really enjoy that. Italy, Aunti Poldi and the Sicilian Lions by Mario Giordano, translated from the German by J. Maxwell Brownjohn. Aunti Poldi can think of no finer place to wait for death than Sicily. All she asks is a sea view, fine wine, and plenty of it, and her family close around. When death instead takes her handsome young friend Valentino, and under mysterious circumstances at that, Poldi will not take it lying down. Perhaps it's in her blood. Her father was a detective chief inspector. Perhaps it's a diverting excuse to spend more time with men in uniform. Or perhaps it's just the promise she makes to Valentino while holding his poor dead hand. But Aunti Poldi's hunting instincts have never felt more alive. Justice must be served if it's the last thing she does. This is a great series. Aunti Poldi is a great character, and I love the way that these books are told. They're all narrated by her nephew, with certain times when you're pulled out of the story because the two of them end up having a conversation. So it kind of feels in a way a little bit like The Princess Bride that way, but they're just really fun, and Aunti Poldi is fantastic, and I really enjoy that series. Kenya, Mark of the Lion by Suzanne Aruda. In 1919, when most women only dream of adventure, Jade Del Cameron lives it. After driving an ambulance along the front lines of World War I, she can fire a rifle with deadly precision. Still suffering from the trauma from the Great War, she sets off for Africa, determined to fulfill a man's dying wish, never expecting to become involved in murder. This is a series I really enjoyed, and I decided to reread it, and I'm actually reading Mark of the Lion right now. Botswana, Tears of the Giraffe by Alexander McCall Smith. This is the second in his #1 Ladies Detective Agency series. Among her cases this time are wayward wives, unscrupulous maids, and the challenge to resolve a mother's pain for her son who is long lost on the African plains. Indeed, Ma Remotsway's most own impending marriage to the most gentlemanly of men, Mr. J.L.B. Mataconi, the promotion of Ma's secretary to the dizzy heights of assistant detective, and the arrival of new members to the Mataconi family all brew up the most humorous and charmingly entertaining of tales. I quite enjoyed that series as well. It is gentle and you just want to drink a nice slow cup of tea as you read them. Spain. The Club Dumas by Arturo Perez-Reverte, translated by Sonia Soto. Lucas Corso is a book detective, a middle-aged mercenary hired to hunt down rare editions for wealthy and unscrupulous clients. When a well-known bibliophile is found dead, leaving behind part of the original manuscript of Alexander Dumas' The Three Musketeers, Corso is brought in to authenticate the fragment. He is soon drawn into a swirling plot involving devil worship, occult practices, and swashbuckling daring-do among a cast of characters bearing a suspicious resemblance to those of Dumas' masterpiece. Aided by a mysterious beauty named for a Conan Doyle heroine, Corso travels from Madrid to Toledo to Paris on the killer's trail in this twisty intellectual romp through the book world. Sweden. Detective Inspector Huss by Helene Thurston. One night, Detective Inspector Irene Huss is called to the scene of an apparent suicide. The dead man landed on the pavement in front of his luxurious apartment. A wealthy financier, he was connected through an old boys network to the first families of Sweden. But the society suicide turns out to have been a carefully plotted murder. As more murders ensue, Huss tangles with motorcycle gang members, skinheads, immigrants, and neo-Nazis, a cross-section of Sweden's disaffected, until ultimately she discovers which of the suspects actually killed the victim, the Swedish millionaire, and why. Australia. A Dangerous Language by Sulari Gentile. This is the 8th in the Roland Sinclair mysteries, and that's actually the first one of the series that I've read, but I really enjoyed it, so I'm going to go back and start at the beginning. When Roland Sinclair volunteers his services as a pilot to fly the renowned international peace advocate Egon Kirsch between Fremantle and Melbourne, he is unaware of how hard Australia's new Attorney General will fight to keep the reporter off Australian soil. In this, it seems, the government is not alone, as clandestine right-wing militias target Kish. A communist agent is murdered on the steps of Parliament House, and Roland finds himself drawn into a dangerous world of politics and assassination. Once again, he stands against the unthinkable with an artist, a poet, and a brazen sculptress at his side. The Netherlands. Death in Delft by Graham Brack. 1671 Delft. 3 young girls have been abducted from their homes. The body of one has been found in a shallow grave. The other 2 are still missing. The murder has shocked everyone in the peaceful city of Delft, and the mayor is desperate to catch the perpetrator before panic can spread any further. With the bitterly cold January weather intensifying, it is doubtful that the other 2 girls are still alive, but whoever took them is still at large. The mayor requests the help of Master Mercurius, a gifted cleric from a nearby university, and local artist Vermeer, who uses his skills to sketch the crime scenes. Israel. The Devil in Jerusalem by Naomi Reagan. Now this one is not a traditional mystery, but it is found in the mystery section of the library. There is definitely a mystery in it, and the case is investigated by a police detective. So I think that it counts. An ambulance screams through the Jerusalem's quiet streets. Inside, a toddler fights for his life, his parents nowhere to be found. With profound shock, an emergency room doctor realizes that the child's mother, a young American, is already at the hospital, sitting at the bedside of yet another child with traumatic injuries. Devoutly reciting psalms, she stubbornly refuses, to answer any questions, cautioning her children to say nothing. Brought in to investigate, Jerusalem detective Bina herself a young mother, carefully peels back layer after layer of secrets and lies, following a dark, winding path through Jerusalem's old city, Kabbalists, mystical ancient texts, and terrifying cult rituals, until she comes face to face with the horrifying truth which has held a young American family captive. This one is also based on true events. Egypt. Murder at the Mena House by Erica Ruth Neubauer. Egypt, 1926. Fiercely independent American Jane Wonderly has made up her mind she won't be swept off her feet on a trip abroad. Despite her Aunt Millie's best efforts at meddling with her love life, the young widow would rather gaze at the Great Pyramids of Giza than into the eyes of a dashing stranger. Yet Jane's plans to remain cool and indifferent become ancient history in the company of Mr. Redvers, a roguish banker she can't quite figure out. While the Mena House has its share of charming guests, Anna Stainton isn't one of them. The beautiful socialite makes it clear that she won't share the spotlight with anyone, especially Jane. But Jane soon becomes the center of attention when she's the one standing over her unintentional rival's dead body. Now, with her innocence at stake in a foreign country, Jane must determine who can be trusted and who had motive to commit brutal murder. And then finally, Indonesia, with A Bali Conspiracy Most Foul by Shamini Flint. Inspector Singh is back, but this time on secondment to Bali. A bomb has been let off in the most touristy part of the island, and Singh has been sent to help with security and anti-terrorist measures. But very soon the Bali police realize Singh has little to offer them in terms of experience in this field. He's much better suited to doing what he's good at, solving murder. Simple. So, when a body is discovered in the wreckage, killed by a bullet before the bomb went off, Singh should be the one to find the answers. But simple murders are never as simple as they seem, and this one has far-reaching political consequences. So there you have it, 20 mysteries from 20 countries for 2020. I hope you found something in there that intrigued you and you'll look further into it. Do you have a mystery from a country that I did not talk about in this video? I would love to read your recommendations in the comment section down below, and I will see you for another video soon. Bye.